There are some businesses that are not out there chasing customers. Customers are chasing them. In fact, they're lining up to do business with that business, right? It's an incredible position to find yourself in. Imagine if you were in a position where you had so many leads and so many inquiries that you could pick and choose who you wanted to work with and at what price. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's the 12 principles for becoming oversubscribed. For the last 10 years, I've been studying businesses all over the world in all different industries, looking for the common themes of businesses that get themselves into a position where they're not chasing and where they are curating customers. Wouldn't that be nice? All right, let's get into those principles. Principle number 1, only oversubscribed businesses make a profit. Only in a situation where there are more buyers than sellers do you make a profit. This is like the first rule if you do an economics degree. They're going to say demand and supply sets the price, and demand and supply sets profit, and everything else is noise. If profit was given out fairly based upon how hard your business is to run and how much you love your customers, businesses like airlines, businesses like supermarket and grocery stores would make huge profit margins. Often these businesses operate 7 days a week. They're very capital intensive. They're customer service and safety dependent, all of these types of things. And what we know is that airlines and grocery stores, they make 3 to 7% margins at the best of times. So they're not wildly profitable businesses, despite the fact that they are like always there for their customers. If we were to think about a business that is difficult to deal with, but makes a huge amount of money, you might take a business like Rolex watches. So Rolex, you have to go on a waiting list for 18 months. They don't do amazing customer service. You've got to chase them. They don't chase you. Their product is not particularly innovative. It doesn't have any major customer service advantages that come with it, and yet it's got like 70 or 80% profit margin. So what we can learn from this is that only oversubscribed businesses make a profit. You've got to get yourself into that position of being oversubscribed. You have to have more demand than supply. Principle number 2 is that your people are the only people that actually matter. It doesn't matter what the size of the market is. It doesn't matter like how many people are out there. It doesn't matter what people are spending as an aggregate total in the market. We're not focused on the market, we're focused on your market. So your market consists of your people. These are people who know you, like you, and trust you. So even though there are millions of people running around in potentially the market, each individual person has to fall in love with your business. They have to be 7-Eleven Ford. They need 7 hours, 11 interactions, and 4 locations before they start to really pay attention to your business. Now, every single person that you build that 7-Eleven Ford connection with is now part of your market. Principle number 3 is first you make a market and then you make your sales. So there's a great example of this, and it's Glastonbury Music Festival. For 364 days of the year, they make a market of people who want to go to the festival but can't buy a ticket. And they do that by forcing you to register for a ticket but not buy a ticket. So the only thing you can do for 364 days of the year is just register that you're interested in buying a Glastonbury ticket. For 1 day of the year, in fact for 1 hour of the year, you can actually go ahead and buy a ticket. So what they do is they register something like 700,000 people, and then they say there's only going to be 140,000 tickets available. They go on sale tomorrow at 5 a.m. and then people will rush in, and within about 30 minutes, all the tickets are completely sold. They first made their market and then they made their sales. So what we do as businesses is we do a signal collecting campaign. We actually go out to the market and just get people to say that they're interested. And then once they're interested, we then allow the sales to be made. So that's the third principle. Principle number 4 is to meet people where they are, not where you wish they were. So we often wish people cared about what we do. We wish people were like passionate about the things that we're passionate about. But the truth is customers have their own wants and desires. And unless your product or service aligns to what they already want, you're probably unlikely to sell them anything. So you have to figure out what is it that people want and how is it that your product or service matches what they already want. When we think about meeting people where they are, not where we wish they would be, we think about what are their current problems, what are their frustrations, what are their desires, what are their passions already? What does it feel like to be in their shoes? We want to adopt radical empathy for the customer and figure out what is it like in their world and how do we go and meet them in their world and show up in their world powerfully so that we can then take them on a journey. A great saying is sell people what they want and package in and deliver what they need as well. A great example of this would be a fitness trainer. A fitness trainer might be really passionate about core stability and health and diet and exercise and all of this sort of stuff. But what the customer wants might be to look better in a suit or to get compliments about the way that they've been working out and looking more healthy and fit. So if you start with aligning to those desires and aligning to those wants, then someone will be excited about all the transformation and change that goes along with that. So meet people where they are, not where you wish they were. Principle number 5 is that people buy when the conditions are right. Now, let's talk about what are those conditions. Well, there's a few things that have to happen. Number 1, we want to create something called transparency of demand and supply tension. I know that's a mouthful, but what it means is that each individual customer knows that there are plenty of other people who want to buy, right? So that's the prep, that's the beginning of it. Then each individual customer needs 3 things to happen. They need logic, emotion, and urgency to come into alignment. Logic means they logically want to buy from you because it makes total sense. Emotion is they know you, like you, and trust you, and emotionally feel safe and a sense of desire in buying from you. And urgency is they feel that there would be a cost or they would miss out on something if they didn't buy right away or if they didn't buy in the short term. So we need transparency of demand and supply tension, right? That's the build-up phase. And then we need each individual person to get logic, emotion, and urgency. And then boom, they stampede. Principle number 6 is that we remember that people do not buy what other people want to sell. They buy what other people want to buy, right? So one of the reasons that we buy things is we get social cues from our environment, from our peers, that other people are interested in this as well. And this is a very powerful buying principle. We tend to want to buy the pair of jeans that all the cool people are buying. We want to buy in the neighborhoods that all the people like us like to buy in that neighborhood. We want to buy the watch that puts us into the same group that we associate with. These are all examples of us responding to social cues where we buy what other people are buying, not what other people are trying to sell. Now, here's a funny thing. If your business is running around saying, I really want to sell this thing, it actually repulses people. It makes them less likely to buy. If you say, hey, we'll do anything to make the sale, or if your non-verbal communication says we'll do anything to make the sale, you're actually putting people off. So what you want to do instead is you want to emphasize all the people who are buying from you. You want to showcase examples. You want to showcase success stories and case studies. You want to be able to show your potential customers all the examples of other people like them who are buying from you. Principle number 7 is that people do not spend big money on small problems. So the reason people spend big money is because they want to solve a big problem. If your business presents itself as offering a small problem with a low return on investment, unfortunately, people can't justify the spend. You have to do the thinking work. You have to go through the process of figuring out what is the bigger problem that you solve. So you might think to yourself, well, I just solved this little marketing service that I do social media marketing or something like that. Well, actually, what's the bigger problem? Well, the bigger problem is that if you don't get enough customers, the business starts losing money. If it starts losing money, you go out of business. If you don't have a social media profile, you don't attract those amazing, talented young people who come and join the team. There's all sorts of flow-on effects by not having this particular thing sorted. So don't think about your business as something that solves a small problem. Think about your business as something that prevents an entire domino effect of things from going wrong. There is a very famous old poem, and that poem is called For Want of a Nail. And it says something like, for want of a nail, a shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, a horse was lost. For want of a horse, a rider was lost. For want of a rider, a message was lost. For want of a message, a battle was lost. And for want of a battle, a kingdom was lost, all for the want of a nail. And it basically says that if you don't get a good quality nail in the horseshoe, you may lose your entire kingdom. And that horseshoe salesman, that horseshoe blacksmith salesman was very clever at figuring out how to explain the value of getting the right nails. Okay, principle number 8 is that people are not proactive. We have to imagine that people will not call you back, that they're not going to take proactive action. They're not going to suddenly say, oh, it's time to buy from you. Here's my credit card details. People are not proactive. They need to be guided through step by step, right? So what you have to do is make sure that you do not ever leave the ball in somebody else's court. You create elegant ways for you to always be in charge of the sale or the marketing process. What you want to do is make sure that you're never asking people to make some sort of big jump, big leap, big commitment. You're just asking them for a small, tiny action, and then you'll do the rest. A small, tiny action, and you'll do the rest. You're taking charge of the process. You're the one who is in control, and that your marketing and your sales do not rely upon people being proactive and actually making some sort of big jump or big commitment themselves. You know, it's funny. I see so many examples in the magazines where they're promoting, like, buy this car, and they literally say, here's a car and it's £28,000 and why don't you buy it? And it's like, people don't respond like that. They're not going to see a car and say, oh, it's £28,000, quick, take my money. If that same ad said, here's how to get the specifications, here's how to book a test drive, here's how to watch some videos online, here's how to have a chat with our team, right? If it gave people smaller steps and just got them to commit to something small, then the whole business over there at the car sales company could take over and be more in control of every single step along the way. So one of the things I recommend to businesses is figure out what are all the tiny little micro steps that people might go through in order to buy, and how do you just get people to start the process of that first micro step, and then it's your responsibility to walk them through all the other steps until they get to the sale. Now, what I'm alluding to here is that you should have a sales process. You should think through, what is your sales process? Now, many of you have a real icky kind of reaction when it comes to having a sales process, because you've got like some old outdated idea about sales process from the 1970s or something like that, from a car salesman or a movie that like had a bad description of sales. The reality is that the most high-end brands will have the most amazing sales processes. Apple has an amazing sales process. Google has an amazing sales process. Rolex, BMW, Bentley, all the most luxury and premium brands that we love have incredibly well-developed sales processes. All of the brands that I just mentioned, they have sales trainers, they have sales scripts, they do sales boot camps, they have everything that you would imagine to make that sales process completely proactive on their behalf and not leaving it to chance on the customer's behalf. So if all of those amazing loved brands have all invested so much into getting such a great sales process, you should do some of that as well. Principle number 9 is that the value is actually created in the ecosystem. It's not one thing, it's the ecosystem of things. And the best example of this is Apple. We know that Apple on its own, like the individual iPhone by itself, is probably comparable to a Samsung or any of the other brands, and the individual computer on its own is probably comparable to a HP or whatever else. But when you put all those things together, there's a huge amount of value in the ecosystem. And it's the ecosystem that creates value. So what we do is we always look at what is your product and service ecosystem, and we try and break it up into several different chunks. We try and get you to create some gifts for people who are new to your brand. We create product for prospects for people who want to get to know your brand a little bit better. We create core product offerings, often in gold, silver, and bronze versions. And we create ongoing subscription products that people can go and have a lifetime journey with your brand. And it's all of those things combined that create the value. And if you try and pull it apart and dissect it, it just loses that hidden element that creates so much value uplift. Now, we see this with people like Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay has books and TV shows and restaurants, and he has low-end street food restaurants and high-end Michelin star restaurants. And he's got all sorts of things in his empire, and not one of those things on its own would make anywhere near as much money as all of those things combined. So it's when he combines all of that that we end up with what you would call a business empire or business ecosystem. And it's the value that gets created in the ecosystem that's impossible to copy, it's impossible to replicate, and it creates so much profit. So in relationship to a small business owner, because I know that, okay, it's good for Gordon Ramsay, but what about yourself? Well, we just want to think about, can you add a gift product? Can you add a product for prospects like a scorecard? Can you improve your core product? Can you better communicate the value of your core product? Can that core product lead into something that is more of a subscription-oriented product? Can we have at least those 4 products in your ecosystem so that you've got more opportunity to create even more value? Principle number 10 is remarkable budgets beat marketing budgets. So what does the word remarkable mean? Well, it means worthy of remark. It means worth talking about. So if you can do things in your business that make you worth talking about, that means that you don't have to spend marketing on that word of mouth transference. Now, you can turn that up to 100 if you want by thinking about how your business can become more socially shareable. So think about a cafe that creates an Instagram wall where you can stand in front of that wall, pose in front of that wall, maybe hold something up and actually put that on your Instagram. Every single person who does that is promoting that business out to their hundreds of followers. And there are plenty of examples of companies that have done this really successfully. Imagine a business that puts its clients on the YouTube channel, right? And then they go and share it on their social media. Imagine a business that creates content that it encourages people to share. Right? So all of that socially shareable content that creates remarkable experiences. So think about your business as a remarkable engine. What are all the things that you could do that would be worth talking about, that people would hear about it or they'd see it and they go, oh, I've got to tell someone that that business does that. So look for things that are remarkable. Look for ways for it to show up on social media. If you can get people talking positively about your business, you will replace a significant chunk of your paid marketing budget. Principle 11 is that it's your business, you get to set your own rules, and you can be very different by setting your own rules. So for example, I know someone who's a business coach, and for the first 3 weeks of every month, they are a business coach, and for the last week of every month, that person goes traveling and they do cooking classes around Europe, and then they get back to work at the beginning of the month and they do another 3 weeks of being a business coach. And you know what's funny? Everyone loves that rule. They also set the rules by saying, don't call me, I'm away, I'm not going to be checking my email, I'm not going to be checking my phone. I take a week off at the end of the month, and then I do 3 weeks of coaching at the beginning of the month, and that's how I operate my business. That person is oversubscribed, so they can set those rules, and it's actually fun, it's remarkable, it's interesting, and people love having a business coach who gets to take 3/4 of their time off doing cooking classes around Europe. So here's the key thing. If you want to have more time off, it's your business, you set the rules. If you want to start at 10 a.m., it's your business, you set the rules. If you want to take 6 weeks off for summer holidays, it's your business, you set the rules. If you want to do things in a really funny and ridiculous way, it's your business, and you can do that if you choose, right? So remember, you don't have to copy anyone else. You can be totally different. You can set your own rules, and if it works for you and if it works for your customers, then that's totally fine. That's a great way to be differentiated. Now, here's the other thing. Putting rules in place creates constraint, and constraint means that your supply is limited. When your supply is limited and the demand is rising, guess what happens? The price and the desirability of your product or service goes through the roof. What we think is that being in business means being a regular, amazing supplier who's available 24/7. The truth is that water is freely available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the thing that we all rely upon to live, and yet no one puts a high price on it because it's so available. Now, if there was a news report that said, oh my goodness, there's no water available anymore, we're running out of water, can you imagine the value or the price that would suddenly get put on water? The price of water would go through the roof. So that's not a business idea, by the way. So the key thing is that being less available actually often increases your value. You can set rules like how many customers you want to take on. You can set rules about what type of customers you work with. You can set rules about what hours you want to work, right? All of that creates constraint, and that constraint creates that extra tension around the demand and supply. The final principle, number 12, is that business is a team sport. Maybe you feel a little bit overwhelmed by all the things that you've got to do in business. Maybe you're sitting there going, how am I going to implement all these principles? How am I going to get all of this stuff done? We got to remember, business is a team sport. I have never been in business by myself. All the businesses I've ever started, I've always had a co-founder or an assistant on day one, and I've always built these little teams really, really fast. My favorite little small team at the beginning is 4 or 5 people. I like sales and marketing. I like someone who's in charge of customer support or customer success, and I like someone who is an assistant or an administrator, so that between the 4 or 5 of us, we can get so much more done. There's that little bit of team dynamic and team play. You might think it's expensive having a team. I think it's incredibly expensive not having a team, because you never get off the ground without a team. You never make things happen without a team. It's too hard to do it all on your own. So remember that you've got to go out there and find some good people to join the team. Now, here's the catch. You're not actually going to get the right people straight away. You're a small business, you're a startup, you're going to get whoever's available. Maybe there's a teenager who lives next door and they can come and do a few hours work with you. Maybe there's someone you used to know who's now retired from work and they want to do a few hours a month. Maybe there is someone who has a disability and they can't work in the full capacity, but you can actually give them plenty to do provided you help support them in the way that they work. There are plenty of ways to find some people on your team, cobbling together that early little team so that everyone can focus and get more achieved. There's also the emotional support of a team. Going on this journey with a bunch of other people who are actually on this with you, and you get to natter and talk and strategize and come up with ideas, that's where it's really at. So business is a team sport. So there you have it. Those are 12 principles for getting your business oversubscribed. If you apply these principles, people will start lining up to do business with you, and you will have to fight less to win business, and customers may even fight to be one of your clients. Let me know in the chat below, which one of those principles really stood out for you? Which one can you implement almost straight away? Which one's the most exciting for you to get started on? I'd love to get that feedback. And don't forget, like and subscribe, because I've got plenty of new content coming out every week.